President Tinubu conveyed the budget adjustment in separate letters sent to both the Senate and the House of Representatives, which were read during plenary by the Senate President Godswill Akpabio. According to President Tinubu, the increase was driven by 1.4 trillion naira in additional revenue from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, 1.2 trillion naira from the Nigeria Customs Service, and 1.8 trillion naira generated by other government-owned agencies. Following the announcement, the Senate President has referred the President's request to the Senate Committee on Appropriations for urgent consideration. He assured lawmakers that the budget would be finalized and passed before the end of February. Public Affairs Analyst Fred Nzako joins me in the studio for more on this. Thank you so much for joining us at this point. Thank you very much. So,
thank you.
You've seen the increment now from about it's about 9.05% to about 54.2 trillion naira. It's official. That's an increase in the amount. What do you think of all of this?
Well, what I think should be more of how do we implement our budget? How do we increase the percentage of implementation? Because we have a record of very poor budget implementation in this country. Most times from between 50 to, if we hit 60%, we will be clapping for ourselves. Okay. I would have done very well. So the question now is, to what extent, or rather for what purpose will this increment be made? If already the 49.7 budget of earlier presented for 2025 has about 13 trillion naira deficit.
Yes.
So the natural question everybody has been asking is, if we are hopeful of making an extra 4.4 trillion, why don't we use it to defray the deficit so that we'll reduce our deficit? Because for every deficit in our budget, any attempt to implement what is in that deficit budget is borrowing. So if we had planned to borrow close to about 13 trillion, and we now have the hope of making 4.4 trillion, so why don't we reduce the deficit budget and cover, at least close the gap between the actual budget and then the deficit that we have? That is one question that government has not answered. Secondly, for every increment in the budgetary profile, it means that government is hoping to make more money. Because the way the matter was reported is as if government has made the money. No, it is a projection. Everything in budget is projection, both in terms of revenue and in terms of expenditure. The projection is such that we hope to make 1.2 trillion from FIRS. Where does it come from? Taxation. Tax. What does FIRS do? Collecting government taxes. Revenue. Taxation. That means in one way or the other, either the tax is increased, but what we have been advocating is that let the tax net be widened so that many more people pay tax, and then let the tax structure be such that it will be to the benefit of the poor. Well, the new tax reform, the government says, will take care of all that. So we keep that aside. The other side is from customs, 1.4 trillion. Where will it come from? Increment in excise or custom duties. Today, the custom has released a new structure whereby you pay 4% on FOB. They just introduced that last week. So if you are a clearing agent, for example, and then you want to file in your clearing, you see that there's an extra 4% that you have to pay. So what does that mean? That custom services has gotten increased for custom to be able to meet up with this high profile, high target that they've set for themselves. And when such has increased, where do you make the money from? And for every increment, the people that will bear the final brunt are the consumers, those who consume the services of the custom, and those who will consume the products for which that revenue has been made by customs. Again, increase in prices. So when you now, 1.8 million from all other government sources, where would they make the money? They operate within Nigeria. They still make the money from the people. At the end of the day, this extra 4.4 trillion will be made from Nigerians.
So are you concerned?
The same Nigerians that everybody has been shouting are going through harrowing times. So there must be a delicate balance between improving the life of the people and increasing the revenue for government. Yes, government need money to also work in terms of providing all that government should provide: infrastructure, health facilities, education, and all whatnot. But at the end of the day, there must be a balance. Because if you overtax the people, you are not only reducing their chances of increasing their per capita income, you are also reducing their chances of enjoyment of life, and then their disposable income available to them. Because at the end of the day, by the time those costs are now transferred to goods and services, the inflationary trend that we are trying to manage will be out of hand. Today, there is a clash between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. The fiscal policy is talking about expansionary trend in government expenditure, whereas at the same time, the monetary policy is trying to contract, in thereby to be able to manage inflation, and by the projection of government, bring it down to 15. How do you achieve that?
So you're not optimistic that this will lead to the improvement of the lives of the people?
No, absolutely cannot. I mean, I've given you the basic, the background to it. So how will it lead to the improvement of the life of the people? Don't forget that the major problem that we've always had is still there. Problem of poor management of our finances. Some people these days are shying away from using the word corruption, but it is still there. Whether you shy away from it, it's still there. And when a government agency will have to bribe to get money allocated to that agency from another agency of government, what do you call it? Whatever you call it is outside what we expect that should happen.
Okay.
And we see it happen on a daily basis. So at the end of the day, part of the reasons why we don't achieve reasonable, substantial budget implementation threshold is because of some of these challenges. If you're unable to touch the people who will release that fund, the fund will not be released. I have had people cry about that fund not being released to them, because possibly they said some people who wanted to be touched have not been touched. So these are all challenges. But at the end of the day, the overriding principle is who bears the brunt. That is where we are looking at.
In all of this now, it doesn't have to be all bad. There must be something good about all of this.
Yes, what is good in it is, one, government has enlarged its expenditure profile. All right? And government is hoping to make the revenue to meet up with this enlarged expenditure profile. The negative side of it is that this same revenue will be raised from the people who are already suffering. But the same government is claiming, I use the word claim because it is still projection, is claiming that when they make this money, they will use it for the welfare of the people. But the government has not indicated. Yes, say 1 billion will go into Bank of Agriculture, all right, to support agricultural productivity, and the other 1.something billion will go into solid minerals to ensure that we make very good use of our solid mineral resources. Throwing money at all these ventures is not enough.
So what can the government do?
Throwing money at them is not enough. I'll give you an example. The issue of solid mineral exploitation is not for lack of money, but for the fact that there is illegal exploitation of the solid minerals all around the country. Illegal. And not only that, it is also tied to insecurity in the land. Government is losing large revenue. It is causing environmental degradation, and it is causing huge loss of revenue. Why should government not find out how best to curb it? And when we say that one of the very best way to curb it is attach importance to solid minerals, the same way we attach importance to crude petroleum. Those who illegally mine crude petroleum, they will meet the government war chests. But those who illegally mine our solid minerals, they don't even get to. In fact, they are the king of their domain. Nobody asks them any question. To the extent that they will fly jet, land in the field, go away with the solid minerals, and nobody asks questions. Why would that be? Why would there be different laws for the north and different laws for the south? Why would government not begin to think in terms of restructuring so that if you know that you have this under your soil, it's either you utilize it properly or you exploit it negatively, in which case you are going to make no benefit. But because it all belongs to federal government, so those who are stealing the soil minerals under the soil, they don't feel any shame. They don't feel any hood. They feel they are just taking what belongs to them.
Mr. Zako,
yes.
Looking at the increment in the budget,
yes.
What should be the solution for you? What should the government do so it doesn't have a negative impact on the people?
The way the government should do that is to first and foremost ensure that what government says will happen in tax reform happens.
Okay.
Because that tax reform, which is still has not been settled, I see a lot of positivities in that tax reform because it has given room for the poor to breathe. Because it's more or less a progressive tax, whereby the more you make the money, the more you pay tax, which is, there's nothing wrong about it. You cannot say, oh, I want to be poor so that I will not pay tax. Nobody reasons like that. Everybody will struggle to make money, and government will encourage you to make money so that you pay more tax. That is fine. And then if, peradventure, unfortunately, one does not make as much money, then one will not require to pay that more tax. All that is in that tax reform. What I will ask for government to do is ensure that critical pursuit is given to implementation of that tax reform, and then bring out several other things that will make life more meaningful for Nigeria. Example. One, ensure that education is touched positively, because these days going to public school has become more like an anathema. Government should invest more money in education. Government should invest money in health. How many of the primary health centers or even secondary health centers can we boast of that is doing well? Yes, these things, yes, as a citizen, you are supposed to pay some money, but when it happens that you find it very difficult, that is where we are talking about health insurance. The level of coverage of our health insurance today is still very low relative to our population. Let health insurance go around so that it's not only affecting or benefiting those in public sector, but it's also benefit those in the informal sector at the private level, so that it will help everybody. And above all, there has to be massive education in all of this, so that people will understand what they are doing and what they are supposed to do. And finally, government must ensure that the electoral process is gotten right. Every 4 years, we spend so much money conducting an election and ending up and emptying all ourselves in the courtroom. For virtually every seat that were contested for in 2023 ended up in the courtroom. So what does it tell you? That we have not gotten it right. So we have got it right so that we'll be able to elect people that will think out of the box and begin to work things out for the populace. Because if you expect the people to continue to think of what they will do for the country, you should also, on the other side, think of what the country should do for its people.
If politicians go to court, is it not good for lawyers?
It's not good for lawyers when it is not in the interest of the people.
Okay.
Yes. What is good for the lawyer is that the people's interest is positively affected.
The people's interest for every lawyer differs.
Well, generally speaking,
yeah,
the lawyer should be more interested in the welfare of the people. Yes.
So in all of this now, this has become official, and we're heading into the budget and using the resources therein. Yes. But you also mentioned about the fact that the government should invest in education, invest in healthcare.
Yes.
Now, the government has been putting some money in these sectors, different sectors, critical sectors.
Yes.
But the government will not come down to monitor these sectors to see if whatever they're putting money in the money is being used for that purpose judiciously.
It is the duty of the government to also monitor.
Definitely.
I remember when I was doing my National Youth Service, we had what we call DIFRE, Directorate of Food, Roads and Rural Infrastructure. I was the monitoring leader of my local government where I served. And we are always giving reports to the state and from the state to the federal. So the government should, once you release money, you should ask questions what that money has been used for. You cannot release money and expect a market woman to go and ask questions. It is still the duty of government to ensure that money released, because the information is only available to government. When people bid for contract, I do not know what they bidded for. I do not know what, but the government should be able to tell the people, this contract has been awarded, and this is the way it is going, it is still the same government that should monitor it. If you spend part of the money, part of the fund for that contract to do monitoring, it's not bad. What I'm trying to say is that not just in throwing money at health and education. If government has said we are putting in 1.2 billion in agriculture, yes, how well is it utilized?
How well will they monitor?
How well will it be utilized and how well will it be monitored? It is still the duty of the government. The same government that has employed people who will benefit from that money should be able to employ others who will monitor them and ensure that they bring back positive results. Because if you just throw in money and there's no monitoring and you expect the people, oh, I have given out this contract, go and ask questions. It is not the duty of the people to ask questions. It is still the duty of government. That same hand that you use to sign contracts, it should be the hand you use to ask questions. And if no positive result is not coming, it is still the same government that should prosecute those people who have infringed on what they are expected to do and then give them appropriate sanction. Today, our people are hungry. Why are they hungry? Because our agriculture is not giving the right input, the right output, sorry. Why are we not getting the right output? Because farmers cannot go to farm. Why? Because there's of large-scale insecurity. So there are so many things the government should do. And who now takes care of the security? Of course, that is the basic essence of government, as stated in our constitution, that the primary responsibility of any government, local, state, and federal, security of lives and property of the people. So if there's massive insecurity everywhere, that means government at all levels have failed. So yes, we have a huge budget.
Okay.
Now 54.3 trillion. How much will it touch the life of the people should be the main question. Don't forget that this is not federal budget. All the states their budgets are now running into trillions. Into trillions. So if you aggregate the state and federal budgets, you will see that Nigeria cannot claim to be a poor nation. What we have is poverty of management. And once we manage our resources well, you see us getting out of the wood. And that is what we advocate. Prudent management of our resources to bring our people out of the wood.
Well, Fred Zeko, you've said quite a lot on this issue. Thank you so much for talking to us. Of course, for want of time, we'll have to end it here at this point. But thank you so much for talking to us on this issue.
Many thanks.
Well, that's